Welcome back. This is another installment of MustardHub Voices Behind the Build. In these episodes, I sit down with the people building, backing, and running better workplaces. I'm your host, Curtis Forbes, and my guest today is Kyle Lagunas. Kyle is the founder and principal analyst at Kyle & Co., a modern research and advisory firm rethinking how we understand transformation in HR, talent, and technology. Known for his sharp analysis, candid point of view, and practical guidance, Kyle helps HR tech and talent leaders cut through the hype and build strategies that actually work. Today, he's bringing research to reality and helping the industry tackle its biggest questions with clarity, credibility, and heart. Welcome to Behind the Build. Thanks so much for joining me, Kyle.
Curtis, I need to give my publicist a raise. I sound amazing.
Yeah, no, right?
I'm going to hire that guy.
And it doesn't even sound like AI slop. Somebody did their homework.
Well, yeah, thank God. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I've been very much looking forward to this conversation. And kind of before we really kind of dive into the guts, I kind of want to start with you. Your path into this work wasn't really traditional HR, was it? Right? I mean, if I recall correctly from our conversation, from our last one, you talked about starting as a blogger, sort of being underemployed early in your career, questioning how recruiting and HR actually worked. Walk me through that journey and what ultimately pulled you into this space.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey. Plenty of struggle, character building experience.
Yeah.
I will say as you're talking through that, I'm recognizing like I've always had a fire in me for this, like making this space better. Because that like chronic unemployment, just so everybody knows, like I came into the workforce. I was actually working my way through college, and got impacted during the actual Great Recession, as I think, like 2007, 2008, 2009. I didn't finish college, and so didn't have a degree, and nobody was going to hire anybody that went to school for creative writing for a couple of years, except for a company that needed bloggers. I guess it used to be a job. You used to get paid,
Yeah.
not much, but still. But honestly, yeah, it was very, I would say, fate. I landed in a place where I had like a mandate actually to dig into what was working and what's not in HR and talent. And I had a bone to pick, which helped. I had some pretty strong opinions. But as I dug in, I realized that it's not that people don't care. It's not like they don't want to do better. I started to understand a bit more of what was powering these problems. And then I also was increasingly looking over at the technology side. A lot of vendors out there have a lot of brand promise, of a strong value proposition for why they are going to solve your problems. And increasingly I leaned in to be like, okay, well, what's up? What do you do? How do you do it? And, what do your customers look like? And how are they happy? And how are things changing for them? How are they moving the needle? And so just started asking questions as part of that blogging job. And I found out about, I don't know if you knew about this, like there's an industry analyst in the space. Like, what is that?
I have to say, when I sort of came upon this a little while ago, I did find it like, it's interesting, right? But think about, your days are probably packed. I mean, there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of, you mentioned something just even a second ago, and the problem wasn't intent. You talked about a lot of the problems in the space, right? And it's not like people don't want it to be better, or don't want to do well, or don't want to have these problems solved either for their own companies or as a platform solving it for the marketplace. So the problem wasn't necessarily intent, but yes, a lot of people come with they are the silver bullet. They have this value proposition that's going to solve all these problems in this space, this particular way, and there aren't, or there weren't, folks who could really vet them, in some unbiased fashion, right? And
Yeah,
so there's a need for it, and that's kind of what you found. You stumbled into this
thank
space
God.
and recognized like there's a huge need for this.
Yeah. Yeah, there really is. And I think that need has increased. Vendors it's easier to build product and ship features than ever thanks to Gen AI. So my work has actually increased exponentially. Um, but I don't just now I've gotten into the space or into the side of the industry where I'm not just studying the vendor innovations and value propositions. I'm not just looking at um, did they ship the features that they said they were. I have increasingly looked at like what impact are you having, and I
Mm,
needed to understand that like I quickly learned like building a better product was that's only part of the solution. I mean, you're a solution provider. You know that you need to partner with your customers,
yeah.
and they need to partner with you, right? And so increasingly, I've really been focusing a lot on how HR and talent leaders are navigating this wild, rampant cycle of like constant innovation and change. And really leaning in to understand what realities are they working with, so that then I can go and be a better advisor to solution providers like MustardHub.
Yeah.
I'm not an advisor for you, but that's the job now. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, vendor, like you're operating a lot of assumptions. You think your customers are asking for this or are ready for this or know what to do with this. I'm here to tell you, here's where they actually are. Here's what they're actually ready for. And by the way, here's what they're willing to buy. So on the other side, I love being able to sit down with practitioner teams and dispel doubt and create clarity and cut through a lot of the noise that exists in coming out of product marketing, but also that's being filtered down or pushed down from the C suite. I like to really help them get oriented around what's really going on in
Mhm.
HR innovation. It is a cool job, and it's fun too. I get to do some really fun stuff.
You do, and you probably get to talk to a lot of fun people. And it sounds like, I mean, well, just kind of like you were saying, um, providing that advisorship to vendors, but you're spending quite a bit of time actually connecting with the practitioners and the people
Yeah.
purchasing that software because you need to be able to provide that advisory, right? You need to be able to provide that feedback to, hey, this is where everybody is. This is what they're actually asking for. This is what their needs actually are.
Yeah.
So that's
It's an important part of like why I founded my own research firm. So I'm a year in. I've been doing research, by the way, for a decade and a half since I was 12. JK.
wow.
A little older. No, I'm just kidding. I'm 40 now. But but it's an important part of the model I'm building because
Yeah.
there has for a long time been a lot of ivory tower analysis and a lot of aspirational thought leadership. There's been a lot of echo chamber in the innovation side of our space.
Yeah.
And I really want to just help people find what's really going on. My tagline for my business is where research meets reality. And I'm spending a ton of, I mean, it's fun hanging out with
Yeah.
and listening to practitioners. The best professional feedback I get is like, wow, thank you. I feel seen. I feel validated. This was really helpful
Yeah.
because it tells me I'm actually not as far off the mark as I thought. So it's really cool. I'm starting to feel that like mission behind the work and not just like the fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about the organization. You know, you're the founder of Kyle and Co. And so for anyone who isn't familiar, tell me a little bit about it. What is Kyle and Co? How do you describe the role that you play in HR and the people ecosystem, you know, beyond the where research meets reality?
Sure, I would love to. So, if you don't mind, a shameless plug. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
So we are a practitioner-led research and advisory firm, and what that means is I have not only am I spending a ton of time with practitioners, listening to what's really going on, digging into the dirt, getting the tea. I am also built my team. They are all practitioners in their
Wow.
own realms. Yeah. So my head of marketing is a former HR tech marketer, and has been doing that work for a long time and knows what those people go through and how they
Yeah.
get to their really shiny pitch decks, and is able to help us partner better with those teams as a result, because
Okay.
they have empathy for them. They have sat in the seat, and so whenever we push back and say, "Hey, this is great slideware. This makes no sense for what people are actually going through," they have that bridge with them because they have that rapport. So that's really helpful. My head of product and innovation, his name's Jake. He was a recruiter for the first half of his career. He went right into agency recruiting out of college
Oh,
and
wow.
ended up building a piece of software. It's called Talent Wall. He sold it. I think that he was at like 3 million in ARR when he sold it and had a really nice little exit, and was a chief product officer for the acquiring company for several years and realized he wanted to do whatever was next. I had invited him to come over here, and we are taking that again practitioner seat.
Hmm.
He's been a TA leader and practitioner. He's been a product practitioner. So when we're meeting with product teams now, he can also empathize and connect with and say, "Hey, I I know that you think you know what your customer is doing, or the operating environments that you're implementing in. Like, this is what you really need to be thinking about. This is how you should be thinking about that," and just helps us with that.
Wow.
For myself, I think it's just kind of helpful to have sat in several seats. I've been an industry analyst for most of my career. I did sit in the practitioner side for a quick hot minute during COVID. I spent a year at a Fortune 25 as part of a huge talent transformation
Mhm.
initiative. Burnt out pretty bad, to be honest. It was really a lot of work. And then I have sat in the vendor side as well, as a strategist for a startup that was scaling up from Series B to C.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we've all sat in practitioner seats. Of the entire ecosystem of innovation in our space, HR, talent, product, marketing, and so I think that we have a unique lens on what's going on. Our services are. I mean, we really produce a lot of research. I published a white paper just last week on the 5 trends that we are tracking going into 2026. And I had, in order to produce it, we had a client that sponsored a advisory council meeting. I brought together 12 HR and talent leaders. We talked about what was top of mind for them. I probed a lot of like the mega trends that are coming out of like the blogosphere and said, "Hey, how does this really land?" And with that underwriting from that meeting, I got to put a whole report together that sits on our site, goes out for free. So it's a lot. It's really interesting. I think that our job is to navigate these innovation cycles and play mediator and moderator between the people building and the ones buying, implementing, doing. I don't think that I've met anybody in the space who doesn't care about the problems that are in front of us, or that eschews the practitioner, like the practitioner role. But I definitely think there's a lot of misconnects and disconnects that exist across that ecosystem, and we are trying to close that gap.
So, tell me a little bit about that. I mean, where do you see the biggest disconnect right now between what's being built and what HR teams actually need?
Oh my god. Well, okay, so I asked this question at a conference, and I got one answer which made me laugh, and I'm going to ask you and see what you land or what you think. What is HR's favorite 2-letter word?
Favorite two-letter word?
Uh huh.
Me?
No way. I don't think HR remembers me. So no, the
No.
like resounding room. They said no. Yeah, the
No.
answer was no, which made me laugh because that is kind of true. But no, right now HR's maybe least favorite word is AI. And I think that this is just such a fraught side of our industry right now, because there are the haves and have nots, the doing and the not doing. And there's also like a lot of assumption, both on the solution provider side and on the practitioner side, and with our executives about what we can, can't, should, shouldn't, couldn't do. Like, there is just a lot of confusion here and a major lack of clarity that is just pervasive. That really, Curtis, has been like the primary area of research that I've been doing for the last 5 years. So I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
it was really exciting to see the pendulum swing a bit with the proliferation of LLMs, the chat GPTs coming out. I've really been tracking the adoption trends on the HR side, looking at companies of all sizes to see how this is actually working, to see what people are actually buying and how they're what pilots they're running, experiments, what they're learning, and it's been really fascinating to see how even the companies, these big global enterprises that you think have like endless resources and budgets to do all the coolest stuff with, are moving at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
And to see actually the profile of their behavior is very similar to those that are in small and mid-sized businesses as well, for different reasons. But
Hmm.
it is like, really, my job is to not just observe that top level finding, which is cool, but then dig in and find out why. What do they have in common,
I would
and what do
like to
they
know what.
not? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm eager to hear what, like, those
So yeah.
HR teams of one, right? Think of the
Mhm,
small, even the micro
mhm.
smalls, like the owners wearing 10 hats. What do you think what do most people don't understand about their day-to-day people challenges, and how is that similar to enterprise?
A lot of it comes down to capacity, capability, and resources. I think is are the
Hmm.
three. So capacity. I have not met an HR leader, whether it is somebody who's also the office manager or somebody who is running a global HR operation. I have never met anybody who's like, "Oh, I've got all the time in the world." Or I made it all the way through my entire to-do list for this year or this month.
Yeah.
Capacity has and remains limited. And that is true regardless of company size. HR teams have been and remain strapped. Capability is an interesting one because in enterprise there is an increasing number of AI councils internally, cross-functional, multifunctional. I would. It's not really a team. It's more of like a council. So you'll have IT, compliance, legal, operations, representatives of the business, especially if there's like innovation and product teams, and hopefully, but not always, HR and or talent sitting on that seat. Finance definitely as well. And the reason why I'm bringing this up again, we're talking about capability. There is a lot of expertise at that table,
Yeah.
and what these AI councils are doing is setting org-wide governance for how they can and can't use AI. Like, remember, everybody was like, "Oh, we can't use ChatGPT because we can't put our sensitive company data on a
Right.
public LLM." Well, I don't know about you all, but my husband works for a small family-owned company, 200 employees. Not tiny, but it's not a global enterprise. They have an enterprise ChatGPT license, and he actually can put company data on his ChatGPT because it's safe. And an AI like his IT team actually made sure of it. The small businesses where you have a team of one or even five, you don't have a whole lot of intentionality behind how we're approaching AI. There is a lot of interest, whether you're at a company of 5 million or five,
Yeah.
um, but there is not a lot of AI expertise in across the organization. It's like we do see an expertise gap for smaller businesses,
Okay.
especially within HR. HR is still bogged down with like
Yeah.
the actual HR work.
Yeah.
AI literacy. AI literacy is I think a rapidly emerging core competency for HR leadership, but it is taking more root in midsize and larger companies. It's funny. I was talking to a woman who's now like a recruiting team of one, whereas 2 years ago she had a team of like 12. and she's a leader now. It's just she's running Rex for the first time in like the last
Oh,
6 years in her career. It's just the reality, you know.
yeah.
And I'm telling her like, oh, have you looked at AI interviewers, or have you looked at this marketing automation tool, or this AI, like this interview scheduler, like things that can help her scale, and process people more quickly. She's like, Kyle, when am I going to put together a business case?
Right.
When am I, like, how am I going to find the, like, find money? Like, how, like, how am I going to get the business to care enough about how busy I am that they're going to actually, you know what I mean? Like, that's the capacity thing is just a huge obstacle. She's like, and by the way, I don't even know what I would put together an RFI to go and find a solution. She's like, I don't even know what I would tell the business I need. I just need help. And I think that is telling. Because
Yeah.
in enterprise, if you say, I like, look, I we there are portfolios for IT. They are coming due to renew certain systems. They have a set investment. Those are cycles that just come up. It's like, all right, Curtis, your ATS license is, or contract is up for renewal in 18 months. Do we need to start thinking about what we need?
Yeah.
Or you're going to say, like, I have a meeting with my IT partner every quarter, and I'm going to say, hey, we are expecting an increase in hiring for seasonal in the fall. I would like to start looking at staffing partners to help us support that. It's January now. I want to have somebody lined up for the fall. Like, those things happen when there is a business, like, maturity, an organizational maturity. It doesn't exist a lot down market. A lot of people are just working through. I mean, you and I are getting on just today, like, getting through the week.
Yeah.
I'm got a small business, and I definitely don't have those motions. I would like to get better. I'm trying to even get forecasting done. But yeah.
You know, I'm curious. So, talk to me about why literacy is such a critical starting point. I understand that there's a lot of, so whether it's hesitation or inability because for lack of time, or hesitation because of ethics or privacy or what have you. Why is literacy the critical starting point, and what's the real cost of not engaging with AI at all?
Yeah, I think the first question is like a whole book. To be honest, a seminar. You cannot be a part of the conversation if you don't speak the language.
Yeah.
You know, and AI is arguably the biggest conversation in business today. And I don't even just mean in for-profit companies. I mean in organization of any size. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do with this AI thing. I the One of the reasons why it is so important for HR is because to date, largely we have been able to lean into when we're looking for a new solution for a problem. If we are trying to build a case for investment, or trying to find a partner for a problem, whatever it is, we are able to lean into our experience with service providers and understand what makes a good service partner. We might have had someone, we know someone is going to help us implement a new performance management tool, or maybe you have a workbook that I can just go through. We can figure a lot of it out. AI is a lot more complicated, my friend. There it is. You might demo with a vendor and say, I want you to help us facilitate our performance management process. Can you do that? The vendor says, yeah, actually I set up a demo based on like here's your branding, here's, you told me what your 5 steps of your process are. I've got this demo in our sandbox. Here's how it works. And it can work, except for if I start to bring it into my actual organization and I didn't actually validate with IT whether I'm going to be able to give this random startup, air quotes here, access to my Microsoft 365 or my Google, whatever it is, my calendaring system. That is one of the most sensitive system in email, two of the most sensitive
Right.
systems in a business.
Right.
Right. And so, like, then I'm going to be like, well, now I can't actually track manager and employee one-on-ones, which was a huge part of pre-populating feedback at the end of a performance cycle. I can't, they're not going to let me take transcripts from those one-on-ones or even notes from those one-on-ones. And so I'm basically just, the AI is not going to do anything for me. I'm
Right.
still going to have this completely fragmented experience. In that example, we're talking about AI literacy. I didn't know what it was going to take to make that tool work. I didn't know what inputs that
Hmm.
the AI was going to need in order for it to function. I like in my organization. I didn't and also I didn't know how to address the very legitimate and reasonable concerns from my partners in IT and data privacy and legal and compliance. I need to know what their questions are going to be. And I'm going to need to be a good partner to them and
Yeah.
help them find answers to the questions. I can't just expect them to be like, well, Curtis, I'm having like I really just need this to work.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going to make this work if it's going to expose our organization to risk for data privacy violations or impact. I'm not going to use anything that you can't prove is not going to have adverse impact on any person in our organization based on protected class. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just like we've looked at AI for a long time. Our lack of tech literacy has been okay because I just get through a workbook to implement a tool. Now these things are being powered by so many more layers and dimensions of data, and making recommendations and making inferences around that data and summarize, like it's doing a lot of very sensitive work. I need to understand how it works. I don't need to be an AI expert. I don't need to be writing like prompts and building custom GPTs. Although I don't know about you, I have done a lot of both. It's been a lot of fun to figure out how these work.
Yeah.
But I need to understand how they work so that I can make them work for me.
So
I
for
need to understand how they work so that I can be a good partner to my internal organization that's doing their job to make sure that these things work safely and as designed.
what would you say to the small businesses or those lean HR teams like the one that you
Yeah.
described?
Yep.
How do they get there without being overwhelmed? Right. I mean, is there a way to successfully get more teams to be AI literate without having to mandate specific tools?
Yeah. I mean, this is why we started, like, capacity and capability are just persistent problems. I will say this. Um, Lower your ego. It's okay that you don't know what you're doing if when it comes to AI. If you don't know what you're doing right now when it comes to AI, it is totally okay. It's not here yet where it's like you're all out. I would say that you can do things, very simple things. One of the things I love is it's actually a larger company, but it applies anywhere. We like this CHRO required that AI became a part of any team meeting in her organization. So that meant if it not just a one-on-one, but if there's like three people getting together for anything to look at like we're about to get ready for open enrollment, or we are just going to look at this escalation or whatever it is, every meeting on the agenda is going to have a bullet about just AI, something. So, for example, I built to help me get to my fitness goal for this year. I built a meal planning prompt that I use every week. It asks me when I'm going to be home and eating meals at home, when my partner's going to be eating meals at home, and any leftovers we have in the fridge. Like, and I shared it with my friends. I'm like, hey, this is super cool. It's working really well for me.
Wow.
I figured out in that, I mean, is it HR stuff? No. But am I getting more expert and more literate? And am I sharing a use case that's safe and approachable and actually multi-layered? Yeah.
So
And
is that
so,
is that the way to go about it without overcomplicating? If you just sort of take the pressure and the weight off of getting it right and just
mhm,
encourage the exploration, is that how we get started?
I think that we shouldn't be afraid. I think that we should be mindful
Right.
of use cases that might be. We work with a lot of sensitive data and information, and we need to be stewards of the business and of the workforce. So, like, let's make sure that we aren't just jumping in. That's not my advice. Just jump in and do whatever you think of. Um, but I think start with safe things. Like I, I want to create a flyer to announce a company potluck for our like
Mm,
admin appreciation day. I don't know what it is. Like
yeah.
I want to sound fun. Or I am trying to I'm trying to think of new ways to incentivize our team with some discretionary bonuses that aren't just cash. What are some ideas, and brainstorm with a GPT of choice, or a LLM of choice, whether it's Gemini or Copilot or whatever, and just wax philosophical with it, see what it comes up with. I think it is getting experienced and getting familiar with it is the most important starting point. There are also a lot of there's a lot of content, as you can imagine. Gen AI producing a lot of content now, but there are courses that are specifically designed for HR and talent professionals to get well versed, experienced, and knowledgeable about AI within their own, specifically in our domain. And
Yeah.
most of them are offered for free and they're produced by a lot of them are produced by vendors. Vendors have a vested interest in us
Yeah.
understanding how these things
Sure.
work, but that's okay. You're still going to take it, be like, well, it did kind of promote their product, but I learned this,
Yeah.
that, So, I think that the big advice is like, don't don't be afraid. Like the fear is going to paralyze us, and things are genuinely, I don't mean to be alarmist, things are moving extremely fast in these innovations. It really, this does need to be a year where you get at least a baseline understanding of how these things work and how they don't. And hopefully you also then go to that next level of how they work for you and what they can do for you and what they can't do for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that I'm hopeful that last year was the last year of wait and see for HR, because the the world is not waiting for HR to see, you know.
Let me ask you this. You described a sort of this interesting scenario, right? Where maybe an organization adopts a tool, a performance management tool, and yet finds out after the fact that, without asking the right questions, they weren't able to get the outcomes that they were looking for because, a variety of reasons, but maybe the tool that they were using didn't necessarily play nicely with their process. So I guess a
Yeah.
question I would have is, if teams are getting, if we've sort of lowered the expectations, we've encouraged the exploration, um, what do HR teams, or just maybe individuals, at large, what do they need to be asking these tech providers to learn more about them, to do the proper vetting and exploration? What do they need to be asking them, but often maybe don't?
Yeah. I think it's a fascinating question. I've actually have been asking, what are the worst questions that you've gotten from a prospective client?
Worst ones.
Yeah. So like, and I candidly, I don't work a lot on advisory, like tech advisory on the smaller side of the industry. It is mid-sized to enterprise. So RFPs and RFIs are a big part of how you evaluate prospective partners. And so I'll ask, yeah, what are the worst lines in an RFI or RFP that you've seen? But you can ask that. You can ask like, all right, so this sounds amazing. What is one of the biggest blind spots that your clients have? Or don't just ask about like what does success look like. Be like, what are some obstacles to success that you've run into? What are some landmines that I need to be looking out for? Um, or like, I'm going to need to not just make a business case to my CFO. I am going to need to make sure that my internal partners are comfortable with us taking on something that's going to work around a sensitive use case. What kind of materials do you have? Like for me to go and champion this internally, not just that this is something cool, but it's going to work. Like probe to see what they can bring to that. It's gonna help, I think, distinguish what real partnership looks like and versus what interesting products are out there. The other piece is not limiting your inquiry to vendors.
Hmm.
Um, I I mean, everybody in my network is making intentional effort to get out of the office and go to industry events this year. Whether it is a lunch and learn in town or whether it's going to a major conference, they are getting out. And I see a lot of people causing like in sessions, like or after a session, like, did that make sense to you? Because I'm not really sure I understood where they were coming from. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, good. I'm glad that you said that because I honestly don't know what they're talking about either. Or like, or that is so far fetched. There's no way that's going to work here. Then suddenly people start clustering up. Um, I'm a loser. I log into LinkedIn every single day. And so I'm doing a lot of networking on there. Um, our HR people, I know we started at the top about the limited capacity. I do think it's really important this year to try to find some space to just reach out and connect with your colleagues and ask the questions that you don't want to throw out in the senior leadership team meeting, and find out what other people are doing and where they're succeeding and what they're
Yeah.
learning. This is definitely going to be a like community moment. It should be. No HR person should be on an island, although I know a lot of us just inevitably get that
Yeah.
isolation. I think the only way to break out of it is to try. You're not going to have a bunch of HR friends knocking on your door, be like, "Hey, are you isolated?"
Yeah.
you know, you really got to get out there.
Tell me a little bit about, well, two scenarios here. Um, obviously there's there's vendors, there's platforms out there that you would consider maybe best in class solutions that have, maybe exceptionally well designed technology, right, or incredibly sophisticated that has all these bells and whistles, that does all this incredible stuff. Um, but there's also a trust factor, right? You have practitioners that are comfortable using certain tools, right? Maybe that they've used for a
Mm,
long period of time. Maybe at some point they get tool fatigue and they're not really interested in learning new software, a new way around, just because they know they're going to have to do it in another 2 years anyways. So I guess the
mm.
question is how do you balance that, in your position, right, as coming from this advisory angle, right? Best in class, best tech versus what people are most confident and feel good about using, which aren't always the same platform.
Oh no, almost never are. There really is no such thing as an absolute best in class. There's just not. Um, that is a huge reason why you should be evaluating the potential partner and not just the product. In that earlier example of like, I'm going to go out and buy I need to enhance our and standardize our employee performance review process. I really want to use some AI to help ease the administrative burden on managers, create standard, whatever, yada yada yada. Um, if I run into that obstacle where IT is going to say, you cannot give them access to one on one notes and email inboxes and calendars, there's no way. I'm going to look to the best partners out there are going to be the ones that are going to get on a phone right away, probably a C-level sponsor for that client engagement. Big or small client, by the way, is going to get on and help and let me talk you through this. Let me like show you all of our security protocols. We've run an audit every quarter for potential adverse impact, whatever it is. I need to know that's what best is going to look like, is who's going to be best for me. And it's especially important now because everything is so damn demoable.
Yeah.
Everything looks, really, it should at least. um, you got to get below the surface, and I'm not talking about looking at lines of code. That's for somebody else. It's for us who we are trying to be good partners internally. We need to make sure that we're pulling together the right partners for us externally. I think that's what it ultimately comes to. At the same time, Curtis, like there are some consumer grade systems and enterprise systems that we all love and we like. And it might, or that we're stuck with, like we're using the same software for payroll as we are for recruiting, as we are for performance. I get it. It's hard to make a case right now for a better way. Um, But I will say that leaning into real success stories for those among the customer base of those best in breed systems, those that are specifically designed for a recruiting use case or performance
Hmm.
management or whatever. I want to know the business impact that people are realizing because they've invested in that partner. That's going to help me then make the case internally, and overcome this. I honestly think it's a little overdone right now of like, do we really need that? Like HR, like it's okay for us to challenge HR to make a strong business case, a sound business case for investing in a better solution, a better product, purpose
Yeah.
built product. But I think that yeah, there's a lot of really interesting and value add capabilities that are in market. That's partly why it just comes down to for HR to. I said you can't be a part of the conversation if you can't speak the language.
Right.
That's why we're going to have to get a lot better about like our financial acumen, building a case for investment, making sure that we have a defensible decision because they've validated they're mitigating bias or they have the right security protocols in play, whatever. Like it, the burden of finding a new capability has gotten a lot bigger, at the same time as the options have expanded rapidly. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting conundrum that we're in. Um, it's partly why I'm loving the work that I get to do now is because there's people need help,
Yeah.
and yeah, and we get to offer it. Um, yeah.
I want to hear about the shifts that you see coming up. I know you talked a little bit about the white paper that just came out. Super interested to hear when what are those shifts that those in HR and people leaders maybe don't see coming, maybe they're underestimating, but when you think of the future of work more broadly.
I love this question because it's nuanced. I think that what I had the opportunity to do with this report is crystallize some latent ideas and experiences that HR practitioners are having. It's not like I was like, eureka, I found the only answer. It
Yeah.
was like listening a lot and being like, oh, you're talking about this. So, first of all, we are, like I said, innovation cycles are happening really quickly. We are getting into second gen AI adoption already. In first gen, we were really preoccupied with what we were talking about efficiency. Last year was do more with less. This year is do more with less and do it better than you've ever done it before. And so, whereas last year was reduced time, like time to delivery, and increased output, like period. Those were the KPIs.
I'd agree with
What
that.
happened, right? But what happened? We totally neglected experience, excellence, and the actual quality of the outcome. And so we just got more shit.
Yeah.
More. Sorry if I cuss on your podcast. We got more crap. And so now I think this year we really are going to be focusing on scaling. Not like if you anchor your business case for a piece of technology in all of this reduced time in cycle or like the reducing the time to outcome, that doesn't mean that the product is solving your problem because you're going to maintain, especially if you're going to maintain the same process. That means your process itself is hugely inefficient.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's exposed that gap, right? So now it's like, okay, I need to think about a more efficient process, a better process, and I need to think about AI or technology enabling that. So it's like efficiency, sure, but the North Star is a better outcome,
Yeah.
higher quality talent decisions, better talent outcomes, whatever those like quality KPIs are. That is the goal now. And
Arguably humanizing the work too that AI is producing.
I mean, I hate how many times I've heard vendors say, "Oh, and humans in the loop, right? Humans are definitely in the loop," and it's like, That's your
Mhm.
scapegoat to be like, it's not our fault if you don't get the outcome you wanted. I hear you. I love to hear more human centric process design and not just more human centric like technology buying.
Well,
Technology is not the system is not the solution.
yeah, no, I would agree with that statement. And even a conversation I was having earlier today, more along the lines of, technology is not going to replace certain things. It's not going to replace relationships. It can certainly augment them, right? But you can't productize a relationship with someone. It's simply not possible to do so, right? In order to have, a meaningful relationship with another person, right? So much of that has to be built organically. There isn't any amount of AI that's going to allow you to productize what that is. It just isn't going to exist. But it can augment relationship building, right? It can help
Yeah.
facilitate those kind of
Yes.
things, and you can be sort of tech adjacent to the organic building of relationships, and
Yeah.
that's okay. So this idea of I 100% agree. The past was all about how do we do more with less, and now it's about how do we do more with less and make it better. I would argue, or at least even reframe that in a way, better meaning sort of almost more human centric, right? I mean, you hear people. You talked about being on LinkedIn, right? How much do you hear everybody complain about? How much AI slop is all over that platform, right?
Mm.
From
So
from the M dashes to it's not this, it's that.
yeah.
All those wonderful
Hey,
things.
hey, hey. I have always used the M dash. It has always been a part of my
Um,
lexicon.
no,
For
that's
the record.
so that's fair. That's totally fair. But almost
For
imagine like
people that don't know, there's like some tells in what has been like copy paste Gen AI, and using an M dash in your punctuation is one of the tells.
and now,
Don't come for
but
me.
tell me this: you used to use it as part of your normal lexicon, but almost now you feel like you can't do it as much as you may have before, right? You
Oh, I
have to.
doubled down. I'm not even using spaces anymore. It's all dashes. I'm like, no, 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 no. ChatGPT can't take this from me.
That's
I
amazing.
also was a big fan of the Oxford comma too. I love what you're saying, Curtis, because I think what it comes down to is there is no silver bullet solution for the most complicated problems that we face. AI is not going to solve all of HR's problems, and our C suite friends need to chill a little bit and adjust their expectations. Um, and for ourselves, we need to take that pressure off of like, I don't know, I'm supposed to figure out how to AIify all of this. No, that is not the opportunity, and that's not the mandate. And that's why literacy is, I think, such an important starting point, because you and I know what we mean by that, because like we were living this. I'm hoping that your listeners are like, I get that clicks for me, because I understand that AI cannot is not a magic tool, that it is a piece of technology, and I understand how it can and can't help me to move the needle on the KPIs I'm focused on this year. I know how it can help us have more time to build human connections, and I also know how it can help me show up in my human connections more, if, like as a
Yeah.
better like partner or better contributor to the conversation, whatever. Like,
Right. Right.
um, we need to understand the like where it fits into the human experience. We're
That's right.
we're not.
That's right.
This isn't AI's world yet. Although
That's
I
right.
watch a lot of sci-fi movies, and I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah, we're getting there. Um,
Yeah,
oh,
we didn't even talk about agentic AI. Thank God.
oh,
So we'll leave that for next year.
I was just going to say that'll be on the next one. When we do 2020 or 2027 podcast and we look at the year in review, that'll be your prediction for the upcoming year. But
Yeah.
listen, always curious, and I like to ask this as we wrap up. If you're talking to a small business leader, somebody HR of one, an owner, an operator who works with people,
Mhm.
they want to prepare for what's next, right? They don't need to chase every shiny object, right? They want to be literate. What's the single most important piece of advice you give them if you only have a minute with them?
Yeah. Create space. What all like for yourself? Some space in a week. Find an hour for yourself. Find 30 minutes for yourself. I think that that is the most important thing that we can be doing right now. If we're looking at, we talk a lot about AI. I thank you for going on that journey with me because it's something I'm really passionate about. But whether we're talking about AI, whether we're talking about compliance, compliance is getting crazy these
Yeah.
days.
Oh yeah.
Whatever, you know what I mean? Like whatever business whatever is on our plate, we will never be able to wrap our heads around it if we are running from dumpster fire to dumpster fire. And unfortunately, that is where we often find ourselves when we are an extremely limited team that is over leveraged. One person, three people, I don't care. Find space for yourself. And then you can build connections with people on LinkedIn, or you can put together a business case to go to Transform conference or to SHRM National. You know what I mean? Like
Yep. Yep.
it starts with just finding some time for you. I know it's a tall order, but I find for myself as an entrepreneur, I make time when I like. If I'm determined to do something, I do it. Even if that means I'm going to work an hour later than I wanted to on a Tuesday, it's because I spent an hour doing something I wanted earlier that day,
I
whatever
love
it
that.
is.
I love that. That's great advice. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I'm glad you enjoyed it too. I get a little verbose.
Well, I'm gonna have to make sure that when I do post this and I type up the summary, no spaces, only M dashes.
How
Um,
obnoxious would that be?
but thanks to all of you. Thanks to all you watching and listening to Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Please visit mustardhub.com to learn more about Mustard Hub. Get started for free. Discover how we help companies become destinations for workplace happiness and turn culture into a competitive edge. Until next time.